India is the largest and one of the oldest democracies in the world, and we are really lucky that even after 60 years, we can still call ourselves a democracy. We still have the right to the freedom of speech, we have the right to organize, we have the right to dissent. But unfortunately, these are rights that we have not really used or exercised in the past, say, 20, 25 years. And that is the reason, perhaps, the main reason, perhaps, why our democracy has now sort of degenerated into a kind of anarchy, where corruption is rampant, where, even basic amenities are not available to our citizens, where our elected representatives are not accountable to their electorate, where, paying a bribe is become the norm. And in this kind of a situation, I think we, the citizens of this country, are largely to blame. Some people even call India a failed state, and that is perhaps going a little too far. But we should at least be proud and happy that we are still a democracy on paper. I think the crux of the problem today is that how do we regenerate this democracy? How do we rejuvenate it? How do we give it new life? How do we make this democracy really work?
I think one great aspect about elections is we rejuvenate our belief in democratic processes, especially in parliamentary democratic processes. So I think in that sense, it's a remarkable feature that India celebrates that every 5 years on a regular basis. And in contrast with the world around us, which just doesn't seem to know what that means. So I think that said, the quality of the product of these elections leaves much to be desired. And I think the problem really is not about what happens during elections, but what happens before the elections. So it's by and large become a phenomenon where we get in touch with our responsibilities as citizens every 5 years, and then we forget that we are citizens. So that this seems to be a all-pervasive problem across the country. But that would also be a very naive way to put it. Now, even if I want to be a citizen in a full sense, in a complete sense, the kind of processes that have evolved in the last 2-3 decades have created a state of helplessness in citizenry, that we just look at elections as a ritual we need to participate. And since it becomes a ritual, it's more like, have you gone to vote? It's not so much about have you voted sensibly. So if you didn't vote, then you have betrayed the country. That kind of campaigning is also going on. So my question is, why should I vote? When I look at the type of state of our politics, I want to say this is not what I asked for. This is not what I pay taxes for. So don't ask me to go into an election booth and subscribe to something just because I have to do it ritually, right?
To make a democracy work, I think the onus is on the citizens. Democracy is like a balance, where if one side of the balance is weighed down by the elected representatives that we vote for, on the other side the citizens have to pull their weight. Otherwise your balance is not in sync. And for this, I think citizens need to not only participate, but we need more avenues to participate. In the rural sector, we have the Gram Sabhas, and that, though they may not be working in the way that we would like them to work, at least it's a constitutional provision that we do have, and we need to use that much more optimally. But in the urban sector, unfortunately, even these provisions are very weak. And besides Gram Sabhas, we need to also use other means of participation. We need to develop other mechanisms, other processes, where citizens can call their elected representatives to book. They need to be accountable, they need to be really representing the concerns of the citizens that elect them.
Voter awareness has to be increased dramatically, and citizen involvement has to be increased dramatically. because unless people are actively engaged and say we are not going to stand for this, we are going to reclaim democracy, we are going to reclaim our rights, we are going to reclaim Bangalore, we are going to reclaim Karnataka, we are going to reclaim the nation because it is mine. Until that spirit comes, we will be only looking at clever laws and clever IT mechanisms and all that.
Governance in Karnataka in general and Bangalore in particular, I guess. I think it's poor in terms of there is no bottom-up decision making at all. Everything is top-down, which means I think even the 73rd Amendment and the 74th Amendment, they're not really they've not been put in place in practice. And earlier it used to be the situation that people just said, oh, politics is dirty and I don't want to be a part of politics and so on. But today they're saying that yes, politics was dirty because I didn't take part in politics. And I wanted to be clean, I should be getting into politics myself. So a lot of people, I think, who are candidates this time, who are, who seriously are there because they want to do something good. They want to improve things. It's not just about making money, unlike the traditional parties. As an individual, what I am already doing in these elections is that I have, quite apart from the party and so on, I've personally made a leaflet explaining the reasons why I'm going to vote for a particular person. In my locality of Sadashivnagar, I made these leaflets and I'm distributing about 1,000 of them to all the houses, explaining the reasons why we shouldn't be cynical anymore. Voting is the absolute bare minimum. It's like I consider it a criminal act not to vote. And two, you must go far beyond that, which is to actually participate in getting the person that you support elected in various ways. You donate money to the party, because there is no other way. If the public or if organizations don't contribute to the political parties, the only way they can do it is through underhand means and the black money and so on. So that we got to root that out first. And also I'm trying to promote the being an actual part of the political process, of going out, getting down onto the streets and supporting your candidate, taking part in their the candidates' rallies or whatever, and then you yourself going and campaigning and so on. This is something that we have to do. We can't just sit at home and say, oh, that person I'm supporting that person, I'll just vote for that person. That's not enough anymore. In terms of the Election Commission is doing an amazing job, and this time I find they're being extremely strict about things and so on. But then money powers are still there, votes are still being bought. I mean, from at least nobody's tried to buy my vote, so I don't have first-hand evidence of that. But anecdotal evidence, yes, a lot of people telling me that yes, I've taken money, and it's they're giving 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees or whatever and so on. So all these stories you still keep hearing. So in that sense, I don't think money power for buying votes is diminished. But I'm only hoping that the voter has the sense to take the money from one candidate and vote for somebody else.
Why youth should participate in political processes is very important. If you see the recent happenings when the Delhi gang rape incident happened, youth took it to the streets, were on the streets protesting, and anger was shown to the country, which led to a lot of progressive things that happened and also which are going to happen in future. So, and also, for instance, what you saw in Tirhar Square in Egypt, youth were on the street. They started revolution. So what I feel is youth should be part of the electoral process, wherein they participate in election process itself, wherein first of all they should go and enroll themselves as voters and cast their vote based on rational decisions rather than being induced to many other things which are presently there in the electoral process. Be part of the election, campaign for candidates who are progressive, which would help us build a secular socialist state of India, country of India.
See, nowadays it's a very, very normal to hear this argument that, I'm not getting water, so, water distribution doesn't work, the BBMP doesn't work, so let's privatize it. I'm not getting electricity, the whole, electrical, whatever, the power management is bad by the state, so let's privatize it, and we've already privatized that. And, this argument goes on. So, this doesn't work, let's privatize it. So, ultimately, you come to a point where you say government doesn't work. So, government doesn't work, then let's privatize that as well. So, what does that really mean? I mean, are we saying that democracy doesn't work? Are we saying we don't want democracy anymore? Are we saying that, we want a government that is more like the corporate structure? We want a corporatized government? Are we saying that we want to lose our freedom of speech, our freedom to organize, our freedom to dissent?
The way I understand you can change the system is you constantly engage with the system. Anything else is an excuse. Anyone says, I don't have the time for it, I don't have the capacity for it, is lying. And you don't need to organize yourself so much. You can do it as an individual at many individual levels. But yes, at some level you need to organize yourself. You need to have a certain level of networking. All that will come. And there has been a lot of good progression that has taken place in terms of devolving power to the local communities. But local communities need to realize it, need to be kind of empowered with those things and, and actually own them up and as if they're really fundamental rights, not merely notionally, really fundamentally. And say, if I do actually that now, that's the only way I can guarantee a better life for my children. Anything else is an excuse to participate in the current miasma. And I'm saying this from a perspective which is informed, let's say. But there are a lot of people who are not informed. So I think the real activity that is demanded is to go and inform people of the legitimate rights they have, their obligations, including the obligation to use the rights. That's the most fundamental. When you start using the rights, then you know your duties. Duties come coupled with rights. Because you have a right, you have a duty. You cannot have a duty without a right. So that kind of understanding has to be deep-rooted. Some societies have done it. I think Indian society is fairly, you can so perfectly sell a stupid soap using the mass media and people get it. You can use cell phones and communicate why you should go for this ringtone and not that one. When such complex messages can get across the borders of literacy and so on, I am sure that we can also communicate the importance of deep democracy.